It is 3 p.m. in New York, 7 in London, and 4 on a Tuesday afternoon here in Seoul. I'm Moon Gon-young. You're watching ARIRANG, Korea's only global network. President Park Geun-hye has urged lawmakers to promptly pass a nuclear security bill ahead of her attendance at the 2014 Nuclear Security Summit in the Netherlands next week. At a cabinet meeting Tuesday, President Park expressed her regret that 2 years after Korea hosted the global conference in Seoul, the parliament has not yet approved legislation related to protecting nuclear materials and preventing nuclear disasters. Now, in the 2012 Seoul communique, the participating nations had agreed to work to prevent criminals and terrorists from getting their hands on nuclear materials. The nuclear security bill has been held up in the Korean National Assembly by political wrangling over other contentious issues. And on this Tuesday, the nation's rival parties remain at odds over that very nuclear security bill. The ruling Saenuri Party condemned the main opposition Democratic Party for refusing to pass the bill, which is related to protecting nuclear materials and preventing nuclear disasters. It has called for an extraordinary session of the National Assembly to be convened on Thursday, but the bill is unlikely to pass without the DP's cooperation. The DP says the Saenuri Party is to blame for the failure to pass the bill because it has also refused to pass other contentious bills. The bill's passage is required for Korea to ratify 2 international treaties on preventing nuclear terrorism. Meanwhile, the ruling Saenuri Party's 3 main contenders vying for the chance to run in the Seoul mayoral election in June are already out on the campaign trail. The party is expected to choose a candidate before the end of next month. It wants to wrestle the mayoral post back from Seoul's current mayor Park Won-soon, and our National Assembly correspondent Yeongjong-do reports.
The Saenuri Party has 3 competitive candidates vying to become the party's sole mayoral candidate. Tycoon-turned-politician Chung Mong-jun, former Prime Minister Kim Hwang-sik, and Supreme Council member Lee Hae-hoon. 7-term lawmaker Chung paid a visit to the Noryangjin Fish Market in Seoul early Tuesday in a bid to win the hearts of everyday citizens.
The Noryangjin Fisheries Market is a symbol of Seoul. The market provides fresh seafood to some 10 million Seoul citizens every morning. If I become the Seoul mayor, I will make Noryangjin a place where people can come and enjoy.
Chung and ex-Prime Minister Kim are seen as the front-runners to challenge the incumbent mayor Park Won-soon. In a joint survey conducted by Gallup Korea and the 중앙일보 newspaper, Park was ahead of Chung by only 0.4 percentage points, well within the margin of error, with 42.5%. Kim trails Park 34.3% to 47%. 66-year-old Kim, who served as prime minister under former president Lee Myung-bak, has vowed to make Seoul a vibrant city. He snapped at the recent merger of the main opposition Democratic Party and independent lawmaker An Chol-soo's political group.
The term new politics has been sullied by the main opposition bloc, which champions the breaking of all political practices. I think it's better to use the term upstanding politics.
Former 2-term lawmaker Lee Hae-hoon also laid out her vision for Seoul.
Citizens want Seoul to become an economically vibrant city again. I will do that by making the capital a financial, medical, and tourist hub. I will also create more jobs and stabilize the real estate market.
It's widely thought any 3 of the Saenuri candidates would, if they won, use the 4-year mayoral term as a springboard to run in the 2017 presidential race. The ruling Saenuri Party is expected to pick a single candidate to take on incumbent Park Won-soon by April 25th. Seoul citizens will have to wait until June 4th to decide whether they want more of the same or a new face in City Hall. Yeongjong-do, ARIRANG News.
Now, China's top nuclear envoy made a surprise trip to North Korea Monday. Now, it is that country's latest effort to restart long-stalled multilateral talks to denuclearize North Korea. But as our Hwang Sang-mi reports, the chances of the 6-party talks resuming anytime soon remain slim.
North Korea's state-run Korean Central News Agency reported Monday that Woo Da-wei, Beijing's chief envoy to the six-party talks, arrived in Pyongyang but did not give further details. During his stay, Woo is expected to hold in-depth discussions with North Korean officials on ways to resume the multilateral denuclearization talks involving the two Koreas, the U.S., China, Japan, and Russia. The talks have been stalled since December 2008. Woo's trip follows one by China's Vice Foreign Minister Lu Zhenmin last month, when he discussed resuming the talks with North Korean officials. Lu then traveled to Seoul to share the results of his visit, performing the role of a liaison between the two Koreas. Beijing, as the chair of the six-party talks, is expected to try to get all parties to seek a middle ground between their sharply divided stances. Seoul, Washington, and Tokyo refused to return to talks for talk's sake, demanding that Pyongyang first show it is sincere about giving up its nuclear arms. The North wants an unconditional resumption of the talks. The U.S. State Department reiterated Monday it remains prepared to engage in constructive dialogue with North Korea as long as the regime adheres to its international obligations. It said the North has not yet shown any evidence of its willingness to do that. Chinese President Xi Jinping and U.S. President Barack Obama are to meet next week on the sidelines of the Nuclear Security Summit in The Hague. But with the recent missile launches by North Korea, the chance that the two leaders will strike a deal on any kind of denuclearization talks appears slim. Hwang Sang-hee, ARIRANG News.
Well, speaking of North Korea, a UN panel that's been probing North Korea's human rights violations over the past year presented its final report to the Human Rights Council in Geneva on Monday. Facing strong opposition from the North and its ally China, the Commission of Inquiry wants to make a case at the International Criminal Court. Choi Yoo-sun reports.
A special UN Commission on North Korean human rights has urged the international community's efforts to improve rights conditions in the reclusive state. Reporting to the UN Human Rights Council in Geneva on Monday, the panel of inquiry said systematic and widespread crimes of humanity committed by the leadership in Pyongyang must no longer be neglected.
Allow humanitarian assistance in accordance with humanitarian and human rights principles. Allow separated families to communicate with each other through mail and telephone and to permanently reunite.
Comparing the North Korean situation to Nazi Germany, the Khmer Rouge's reign of terror in Cambodia and apartheid South Africa, Commission Chair Michael Kirby talked about taking the case to the International Criminal Court. Dismissing the panel report, the North Korean ambassador Seo Se-pyong accused the U.S. and its allies of hostile intentions behind the findings. China, the North's biggest ally, also questioned the credibility of the report, which is based on testimonies outside the regime. Pyongyang did not cooperate with the probe. Responding to Kirby's calls to stop repatriating North Korean escapees, Beijing referred to them as illegal migrants. China's objection cast doubt over any future UN actions on the issue, since it is a veto-wielding Permanent Security Council member. Also during Monday's session, a member of the Japanese delegation, whose daughter is presumed to have been abducted to North Korea in 1978, got a chance to speak, prompting the North Korean ambassador to walk out in protest. Choi Yoo-sun, ARIRANG News.
Now moving over to the crisis in Ukraine and Crimea, Russian President Vladimir Putin has recognized Crimea as a sovereign state, a possible precursor to its annexation, which the West and Ukraine say is illegal. Earlier, the United States and the European Union had imposed sanctions on several officials from Russia and Ukraine. All of this follows Sunday's referendum in which almost all Crimeans who went to the polls voted in favor of becoming a part of Russia. Our Connie Lee reports.
Another step has been taken toward the annexation of Crimea. Russian President Vladimir Putin on Monday recognized the Republic of Crimea as sovereign and independent. The executive order posted on the Kremlin's website came just hours after the European Union and the U.S. imposed sanctions and asset freezes against Russian and Ukrainian officials.
We are imposing sanctions on specific individuals responsible for undermining the sovereignty, territorial integrity, and government of Ukraine.
The sanctions, which include travel bans, were in retaliation for Sunday's referendum vote in Crimea, which was deemed illegal by Western leaders. In the referendum, 97% of the voters approved of leaving Ukraine and joining Russia. The results brought joy to Russians, not only in Crimea, but also in Moscow.
It's legal. I support Putin. I'm for reuniting Russian borders and the reunion of the Russian people.
Up to 60% of the residents in Crimea are Russian, but ethnic Tatars, who make up more than 10% of Crimea's population, are concerned about inter-ethnic conflict.
Of course we're afraid, but what can we do? Certainly not run away anywhere. No, we don't have that on our minds. I can't even think about it.
The Crimean parliament has declared all Ukrainian state property on the peninsula as property of the Crimean Republic, and its lawmakers are in Moscow now to discuss the annexation by Russia. Connie Lee, ARIRANG News.
The Korean government has given the green light to a consortium of foreign enterprises seeking to open a foreigner-only casino on Yeongjong-do Island near the nation's gateway airport. It will be the first casino in Korea set up by foreign investors and is expected to bring in a lot of tourism money. Our Park Ji-won reports.
The Culture Ministry said at a press briefing Tuesday that it has granted approval to the Indonesian-Chinese enterprise Lippo Group and U.S.-based Caesars Entertainment to open the casino, which will be for foreigners only. The casino will be located some 50 kilometers west of Seoul on Yeongjong-do Island, which is part of the Incheon Free Economic Zone and the location of Incheon International Airport. The approval is for the first phase of the consortium's plan to develop a high-end resort. Phase 1 will see construction of 2 hotels, serviced residences, and a convention center for an estimated cost of roughly $700 million, and completion is expected in 2018. The entire development is expected to cost over $2 billion and will be completed by 2023. The Lippo and Caesars consortium first submitted the proposal to develop the casino resort last year, but the proposal was rejected on the grounds that the plan did not fulfill certain credit rating qualifications. The consortium won approval for the plan after enlarging the size of the investment and submitting suitable credit rating assessments.
This is a preliminary approval granted to the consortium, with conditions attached. The approval is only valid when the joint venture successfully implements certain conditions, such as undergoing an annual audit. This decision was made after a thorough evaluation by related ministries, with the goal of boosting the nation's tourism industry.
The government expects the casino to boost employment and bring in tax revenue, as well as strengthen the competitiveness of the domestic casino industry. It will be the 17th casino in Korea, 16 of which are exclusively for foreigners. Park Ji-won, ARIRANG News.
Now, a rate hike is an option for this country. Lee Ju-yeol, the nominee for next central bank governor, says a rate hike could be an option if the U.S. Federal Reserve speeds up its stimulus tapering. In a written response to lawmakers ahead of his confirmation hearing, Lee said the Bank of Korea's current monetary policy is good enough to support the nation's steady economic recovery. Now, he added that a rate hike would not put major pressure on the nation's snowballing household debt problem. Lee's confirmation hearing will take place on Wednesday, tomorrow that is, here in Korea, although Parliament does not have the power to veto his appointment. All being well, Lee will start his 4-year term next month. He replaces outgoing Governor Kim Jung-soo. Korea has taken another step toward developing its first completely homegrown rocket, slated for completion in 6 years. Korea's Space Agency and the Science Ministry announced Tuesday that ground combustion tests for what will be the third stage engine for its indigenous space launch vehicle were conducted successfully at a newly built test facility at the NATO Space Center in Jeollanam-do Province. The 710 thrust engine passed 5 separate combustion tests designed to check both the fuel injection system and engine stability. Now, Korea became the 13th country to launch a space rocket from its own soil in January last year when it launched the NATO rocket, whose first stage was built by Russian scientists. It's not just Korean automakers such as Hyundai Motor and Kia Motors making remarkable inroads into the global market in recent years. The country's auto parts industry is also taking great strides on the world stage, posting exports of more than $25 billion in 2013. ARIRANG News Song Ji-sun reports.
This factory produces automobile engines and transmissions 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, to ensure that shipments meet order deadlines. That's because demand for its products soared 12% from a year earlier, largely because of orders from automakers overseas, which now represents some 40% of the plant's overall production.
The global market recognizes the high quality of Korean-made auto parts. In our case, we do not engage in aggressive promotion, but foreign buyers directly contact us for supply contracts.
This plant epitomizes a steady growth in exports of Korean auto parts, which is about double the pace of that for completely assembled cars. The recent expansion of the overseas production by local automakers Hyundai and Kia helped increase auto parts exports, but GM, Ford, Volkswagen, and other foreign companies accounted for well over a third of the parts exports.
Korea's auto parts exports logged a record $26 billion last year, becoming the country's 7th biggest export item. The industry is gaining momentum as it diversifies its trade partners, faces tough competition as it tries to move up in the industry's pecking order.
The toughest competition comes from Japan. According to a report released Monday by the Korea International Trade Association, Korea's auto parts export similarity index with Japan hit the highest at 0.56, meaning over half of the industry's export items are identical to those of Japan's.
Many Korean auto parts have a competitive edge in pricing over those from Japan and Germany while offering just as good a quality. But market leaders in Germany and Japan keep pushing for higher standards, just as Chinese makers are fast catching up.
Experts say the big challenge for Korean auto parts makers is improving their research and development capabilities, particularly for environmentally friendly automobiles such as electric cars. Song Ji-sun, ARIRANG News.
The Korean Medical Association and the government agreed on key items, including telemedicine on Monday, narrowly averting a second doctor strike, which was scheduled for next week. But that doesn't mean we're completely out of the woods. Well, for a closer look into this issue, we are joined live in the studio by Dr. Kim Byung-ju, the head of KLMP Consulting, and of course our regular commentator on this program. Good afternoon to you, Dr. Kim.
Good afternoon.
Now, yesterday's agreement we saw, the most important point was that medical doctors got a bigger voice in what's called a Health Insurance Policy Review Committee.
That's right.
Big word. Let's first begin with a brief explanation of what this is.
Right. Well, Korean government has so many of these kind of policy review committees, which are often rubber stamping, and they have so many of those. Even I got one seat in one of those committees in other ministry where I have no influence over policy. But this one is very important. Health Insurance Policy Review Committee itself, that's the place where they actually agree on the level of insurance payment to the doctors. So this is a very powerful organization or vehicle or institution, if you will. This was first set up back in year 2000, but since 2002, that has been actually carrying out this function of setting the overall level of pricing. This, what you see on the screen itself, is a composition of this very important policy review committee. What you notice is 2/3 in favor of government or consumers. Subscribers there, I meant by them, consumers of medical services, right? I meant insurance subscribers. So the consumers of medical service, meaning that they have, among those 8 people for subscribers, they include representatives from Korea's 2 trade unions and then also employers association, SME associations, and even interestingly, restaurant business associations. So some of those common people in various segments of the society, accounting for 8 there. And then government representatives, meaning those people who are from the health ministry, finance ministry, and also from the insurance corporation, for the National Health Insurance Corporation and so on. So those are permanent seats. And the other side, the service providers, of course, what I meant by that is doctors. Actually, 2 representatives from KMA, Korea Medical Association, 1 person from the Hospital Association, the other one from Dentist Association, Traditional Medicine Association, Nurses Association, and the Pharmacist Association, and so on. So those are the pro-doctor group, the green side you see. But the thing is, the purple side, those 4 positions are freely, they have been freely appointed by the government themselves. So this is 2-to-1 balance in favor of common citizens and in government against medical interest here that we've seen so far.
And the medical doctors, after yesterday's agreement, if you will, the doctors will get to increase their representation in this committee. Now, does that mean the government side will be giving up or reducing their seats?
Right. That's a very critical question there. To answer to that question, let's bring up the graphics once again. I'll explain what kind of changes will take place here. The change will take place in the purple segment there. Right now, as I said, 4 outside experts have been appointed by the government itself. But now that 4 will be divided by 2 and 2. 2 will continue to be appointed by the government, but the other 2 will be appointed by the medical doctors. So this is a big gain for the medical community, because now changing from 2-to-1 imbalance, they're moving to 14-to-10. So that's a lot of gain in terms of for the interest of the doctor itself. So that's the change. Government will give up 2 seats, and then medical community will gain those 2 seats.
So the medical community will have 10 seats in total, and the government will have 6 seats.
Right.
Am I correct?
No, not 6. It's 24 altogether, right? So it used to be 16-to-8. Now it will be 10-to-14.
So we're including the consumers into the government side.
Right, exactly.
All right. Now, other agreements include those of telemedicine, hospitals, investment in for-profit businesses, of course, and medical training.
Those are all kind of side issues. When we talk about this insurance payments, they'll be decided by this community itself. These are all side issues, and we knew from the beginning what they're going to do with the telemedicine is they're going to try for 6 months, and then they will introduce a law. Government had a different position, but government accepted doctor's position. And about the investment in for-profit businesses, investment by the hospitals, actually they'll set up a talk shop, a separate kind of community where all these people will come in and talk about it. No result yet agreed. And then there will be small change about the training doctors. They will cut down the overall hours for the doctors on train. But these are, once again, all side issues.
Now, medical doctors will vote on the agreement on Thursday. That's in about 2 days here. What do we see ahead in both short-term and long-term agreements or goals?
In the short term, there's a possibility that medical doctors may actually complain that their gain 2 additional seats in the policy review committee is not enough. There's a chance that they will argue and they will kind of reject the deal. But I know Korean Medical Association leadership will continue to argue that this is a great gain, substantial gain for the medical community, and we have to go along with that. So my own bet, maybe I may turn out to be wrong about this, but my bet is that this deal will be approved by the doctors, because this is a fundamental structural change indeed in terms of the mechanism through which the medical insurance payment will be determined, a major step forward. But then again, from government perspective and government and consumers perspective, which is united, I think this was a very clever political decision, calculation, whatever, because they still have the majority. So they can continue to argue that this consumer side and government side won. So this is a very artistic and a very superb political compromise that they reached yesterday.
Very sophisticated and calculated.
Right.
So in the longer term, it will be a win-win.
We'll have to wait and see on that one. That's why this is artistic and artful.
Right. Well, we will wait and see. And on the shorter run, we will wait and see how doctors vote on this on Thursday.
Absolutely.
All right, Dr. Kim Byung-ju, thank you so much for today. We will talk to you tomorrow.
Okay.
And that is all from me at this hour. Thank you for watching. I'll see you back here in less than 2 hours' time on Early Edition at 6.